Hello there YouTube, and welcome to another video. Today's video, I'm just going to kind of highlight and run through just like my basic review of New World. This game has taken up a big chunk of my life over the past year. I have a ton of hours in this game, and I just wanted to kind of break down, just to review and break down everything that I have experienced in this game. How I think things can change, and what I think of this game. I do love New World. I think it's been an exciting ride this past year playing this game, and I know that there's going to be a lot of new people coming back, along with just new players in general. So I wanted to just break down this entire game, and I'm not going to try and make this too long. I am going to try and hit some bigger points and just kind of break down from there. But what we're going to go through is the leveling process, my thoughts on the end game, early end game, along with just like the end game stuff, PvE along with PvP. Just those four big categories, kind of broken down in certain categories within those categories. But essentially, what I'd like to do is for people to come out of this video with a sense of what the game is now compared to when it was at launch and early October, November, even December. There's a lot of things I want to hit on, so let's jump into the video. If you guys are new, hit that subscribe button. Be sure to check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Palmadelic, and thank you guys for watching, and let's get into it. So the first thing we'll dive into is the leveling process. So they have revamped the leveling process as of late with the new PTR, and I have played through it. Now, I have leveled 3 times, once in closed beta, once on launch, and once on an alt account. All 3 very different experiences. My first experience with leveling on the closed beta last year was just an exploration of the game itself, just trying to find anything and everything I could, just trying to experience as much as I could on the way to level 60. Not really power leveling, just kind of enjoying the ride, which I think is the most enjoyable experience for any new player, especially for any player that's returning and maybe they quit around like the level 30 to the 35, 40 mark, is just take things at your own pace, man, because it's gonna always be more enjoyable to level outside of trying to power level and try to get into wars and try to, like that just, it's not the way to do it, in my opinion. You should just enjoy it for what it is. And the first time you come across star metal, you're like, oh, I can't wait till I can hit that, and stuff like that, man. The first time you come across an area that you've never been to and you explore it, and then you die, and then you figure out, oh, I guess I got to set up camps everywhere I go. Better grab flint, better grab greenwood on my way. Like those are the type of things that you're thinking about as you're leveling up and you're experiencing for the first time. And it's such a good experience, in my opinion. I do like the way that New World has set up the experience for leveling for the first time. Once you've done it once, though, you never want to do it again. So the second time I leveled was on launch, and I did a power leveling. And all you do to really power level in this game is town boards. There is really no faster way of leveling in this game, which is sad, because all you need to do is find somebody that can feed you gold, beg for gold in towns, or if you have a couple friends that have some gold to spare to you, that you don't even need that much. I mean, 30 to 40k can go a long way. So which I know sounds like a lot, but in the end, if somebody even gives you like 20k, I mean 10k, you're gonna 10k gold, you're gonna fly up the ranks in leveling. I don't like that aspect. I do wish that there was more of an aspect of forcing people to do town boards without being the easiest way to level, because it is. On my alt account, all I did was town boards. I did main mission, and then I did town boards, and then once I was done with town boards because they were on the cooldown or something, I would do main mission, just to get the main mission out of the way. But I know a lot of people that have never done the main mission, and all they've done is town board, and they don't even have like a tier 5 like Azoth staff, or even a tier 3 Azoth staff from the main quest line, because they've never done it. They just did town boards. They got fed gold and then town boards. The thing about town boards on launch was Azoth travel was a lot more expensive, 200 to 400 Azoth if you had a very heavy equip load in your inventory, and sometimes it was too expensive to travel around different territories, especially if you were the opposite faction of the territory owner. So say you were purple and Everfall was green, and you wanted to travel to Everfall from First Light, it might have cost a lot. But now they have made changes where Azoth costs in traveling is basically slim to none, at most 20 Azoth. So when you're in really early game, you do a couple main missions, and if you just take the time to really run to every single zone, it gets a little tough when you get to like the Reekwater Ebonscale areas because of the high level mobs. But when you run to those areas very early game, then you can fast travel around every single territory in the game, all 11 territories where you can do town boards. It costs you no Azoth. You just fly around the map and just do town boards. So there isn't really a way to do main mission, side quest, and then go back doing town boards. You could literally just do town boards because it takes 20 minutes to rotate through all 11 territories and do all the town boards, unless you're extremely fast at it. But that's kind of my gripe with the leveling process right now, is just the town boards are just the most simple way. If I really told somebody, hey, if somebody comes into my stream, or somebody comes into my comments, or somebody asks me, hey, what's the best way to power level in New World? It's just town boards. That's literally the only answer, is get gold, do town boards. But other than that, I don't think that is the best way to level. I think the best way to level is just experience it for the first time, the way you want to experience it. So do quest, do side quest, do dungeons, do Amrine, do Starstone, do depths, do Dynasty, do all the dungeons, man. Because when I first leveled, I did Amrine like a ton of times. I did Starstone quite a bit. I did depths a few times, Dynasty a few times. And it's been nice that they're going back and making all these low level dungeons and expeditions mutators now, because I'm doing depths again. I've done depths so many times, where when depths first got mutated, I was like, dude, I haven't done depths since I was level 40 on launch. You know, that was months ago. So I do enjoy that they're doing that. I've heard that they're going to be making Starstone. I'm hoping that Amrine one day becomes mutated and all that. So because those dungeons are fun, man. The first time I ever did Amrine was I did a 3-man with 2 of my friends. We were level 19, and we got all the way. It took us like 4 hours, and we got to the last boss, just 3-manning the dungeon, because we had no idea what we were doing. So yeah, that's kind of my my review on leveling. Getting from like 1 to 30 is pretty easy. Once you get to like 30 to 50 is kind of a lull, because you're just kind of grinding through town boards, kind of grinding through side missions. You get gate kept because you have to wait till you get to a certain level to do to progress through the next part of the main story. So another good thing to do in those times is, if you want to enjoy the game, is just go out and start gathering and start doing things like mining, like harvesting, logging, do all that stuff, because by the time you get to end game, that stuff's going to come in handy. So I would do all that stuff. Do your smelting, do your trade skills and things like that. Don't worry too much about like the armoring, the jewel crafting. I wouldn't worry too much about that on your way to 60. But if you wanted to take the time out of leveling, power leveling, and doing like main quests, side quests, all that kind of stuff, take some time to do like gathering and just smelting and all that stuff, man. Because by the time you get to end game, that stuff's going to come in handy, so you can make daily mats. You'll be able to make a little bit more money, a little more gold and all that stuff. What I do like about the new leveling system, though, is they have added a lot, especially on the PTR, and I've gone through it, and they've added a lot of new areas, new places to explore, new mobs, all that kind of stuff. So I do enjoy that they're at least implementing and anticipating new people, or people returning, coming back to the game, starting new characters, and so they're revamping the leveling process to get people a little more hooked in and stay with the game past that level 30 to 35 mark. All right, so the next thing that we'll get into is the end game. I first kind of want to talk about like early end game. So when you first hit level 60, what now, right? So there's a lot to do. The game really starts once you hit level 60, because you kind of gotten your experience out of the way of just like learning the game, getting some of your feet in, dipping your toes in, that kind of thing. And but as you're going through and you're hitting supply crates, you're grabbing, you're gathering things, you're getting so many materials of things you have no idea what the heck they do. And as you go through that process, you'll start to learn a lot more of what everything does as you hit level 60, and as you start doing more end game activities, especially with like crafting and doing like dungeons and stuff like that. But so early end game of New World, in the early stages of the game towards launch, was terrible. Nobody knew what they were doing. Nobody knew what they were supposed to do. Everybody was grinding out these 580 weapon quests, which are now just completely irrelevant and pointless in the game, in my opinion. They were really good at launch and on a brand new fresh server with brand new fresh characters only. Those quests are good, but now in the game, they don't need to exist at all. They are very extremely pointless. And the reason they're pointless is at this point in the game, once you hit level 60, if you have a decent amount of gold, even 1,000 to 2,000 gold, you can probably buy a 2-perk fire staff, great axe, what have you, with better or if not the same exact perks as that 580 staff, and it's going to be like 590 plus, and you're going to be able to upgrade that later on, and it's going to do more damage, and it's just going to be better overall, no matter what, PvE or PvP. So there is literally just no point to the 580 quest anymore. When you first hit endgame 60 on launch, that's what everyone was doing. We were all grinding out our 580 quest to get as a higher gear score weapon. Nobody knew how to grind their gear score. We had no idea what we were doing. We all kind of figured it out that you had to open chests, do chest runs. That's when kind of chest runs started. And then what happened was there was just the entire server was up in Murkguard, going back and forth, killing 2 priest mobs over and over again to try and boost their gear score. So the end game was just terrible. It was awful. It's gotten a lot better now, a lot better. I would say that if the game would have released with the end game it has now, compared to when it did, this game would have retained a lot more players. I do think that the end game now is actually a lot better. It's not as it is a lot more enjoyable. It's a lot less tedious, and it's a lot less grindy. Now I know this is an MMO, it's supposed to be grindy. It is grindy, but it does like the end game to get my gear score or expertise, quote unquote, from 500 to 600 on launch it took me like a month. Now it's a lot different now because there's so many items in the game that are 590 plus, right? There's so many weapons, armor, drops, things on the storage, or things on the trade post, things in people's storage. There's just so many items out there that are 590 plus that it's not hard to get an item 590 plus anymore. As soon as you hit 60, I'm telling you, if you have 500 gold, you can become 595 or 550, because your gear score will average out compared to what your average expertise is, and it will be what your gear actually is that you bought off the trade post or crafted or what have you, right? So if I have a 600 helmet and my expertise on my helmet is only 500, it's going to be 550. So immediately you can boost up to 550, 555, right? And that also makes it way easier to do dungeons such as Garden of Genesis, Lazarus Instrumentality, when at first on launch those dungeons were extremely hard because everybody was 490, 500 gear score barely, and it was actually really hard to do those dungeons. Now you can just buy a bunch of cheap 100 to 500 gold Angry Earth Ward 590 pieces, and you could just grind at Garden of Genesis if you wanted to. That's pretty much the best way to get your expertise up, get drops, all that stuff, get a lot of items like pots, and all that kind of stuff, like health pots, infused regen pots, those kinds of things. Essentially, what the best way to boost right now your gear score with is to do a daily chest run. I would say try to find where and when the chest runs start, like a world tour chest run on your server, and do those every day. Go into recruitment chat and just I'm sure if you ask, hey, when is the world tour, somebody will answer, it's going to be at this time, it starts here. And just follow people, man. You'll meet people, you'll follow people, and you'll get your gear score up very fast. The thing about the gear score in the early game was we didn't have gypsum casts, we didn't have gypsum orbs, we didn't have gypsum kilns, we didn't have any of that stuff. So now that those have been added into the game, it's extremely huge. The gypsum system is great. I don't like doing daily tasks, but if you are just playing the game and just casually playing the game, and you're just going through the motions and you are just doing whatever, eventually you'll just get gypsum from playing the game in random areas, right? Doing dungeons, doing OPR, doing arenas, gathering stuff, all that, doing, getting your emerald gypsum from getting like aptitude crates once you hit 200 on a certain skill, all that kind of stuff, man. So you'll just get a bunch of different gypsum from doing just random stuff, just playing the game essentially. So I do enjoy the gypsum system. I think it's great, and I think it's a fast way to actually boost up your expertise. Because it's rewarding for doing certain activities to just get a few extra bumps here and there instead of having to grind and do just chest run and dungeons every single day and do that and do nothing but that just to get your gear score up, your expertise level up. My recommendation for newer players or returning players is once you do hit 60, buy as many 590 pieces for cheap off the market that you can. I wouldn't really worry too much about perks just yet, but I would try to just get a decent amount of gear off the auction house trade post with 590 weapons, 590 plus armor and jewelry. Once you do that, I would just sit on that stuff for a while because it'll boost you enough to just kind of grind out doing chest runs and dungeons a lot smoother and a lot easier. You won't die as much because your gear score will be high enough to kind of carry you through that stuff. But once you do that, what's going to happen is your armor is going to fly up the charts on expertise. Your jewelry is going to lag behind the most, but I would use your daily gypsum every single day on your weapons and then your jewelry, and then let the armor just kind of play out. If you have extra, go ahead, throw it on the armor, use your gypsum on your armor pieces. But doing dungeons and chest runs every single day, your armor is going to fly up in expertise. I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's your jewelry and your weapons that are going to lag behind. Now, here is another problem with the end game, especially when it comes to PvP. And we do have a PvP section that we'll jump into it a little bit later. But essentially with OPR and wars, anybody that is a fresh level 60 doesn't have any chance playing OPR and being competitive and having fun, and not even less close to being in wars. Which is like some of the best content in the game, man. New World is a PvP game, whether you like it or not. It is. It's the PvP in New World is so addicting and so good. When people are gonna scold me for saying it's good, but when it is good, it's so good, man, and you can't deny that. I've done like 500 wars. I've done like 1,000 OPR games. I'm not a big arena head, but I mean, I've done so much PvP in New World, and you can't tell me that it's not good when it's good, man. It's very rewarding and it's very exhilarating, especially in wars. So that's the one problem I have with the end game is when you're a fresh level 60 and your fresh gear score, even if you do buy let's say you even for some reason have 200,000 gold and you buy a full 2-perk melee set, which is like the hardest set to build. You build a full 2-perk melee set. You're still not going to be able to war probably until your gear is completely like at least war and be like the most effective until you're full like 623. And that's going to take so much time because you need to not only grind your expertise up fully, but then you also need to get umbral shards. Umbral shards are extremely hard to come by because there's so little resource in the game for umbral shards that it takes like 2 to 3 weeks by just doing gypsum casts to get enough umbral shards to get 623. It takes a long time, man. Now if you can grind out dungeons and do mutators, then it's gonna be a lot faster. But trying to find people to do M1 and then do M2 and then M3 and then M4 and then M5, and you get the picture here, and to grind it up to M10 with no ward gear and just your PvP gear, I mean, good luck, man. It's not a fun process, in my opinion. If you can do it, great, that's awesome. But in my opinion, that's just not the way to do it, and it's not very fun. The best way to do it is actually just build out a ward set. Angry Earth ward for Genesis, Ancient ward for Laz, and Corrupted ward for the other ones. But if you build out a ward set and then you just grind out the dungeons as fast as you can and get as many umbrals as you can, you'll probably have enough umbrals to make your PvP set 623, right? But even then, it's so much time. That's going to take weeks. And you only have 25 dungeon runs a week now for mutators. They took out dungeon orbs, which is a good thing, but I don't like that they're gatekeeping the mutators. What I think needs to happen and what I think should happen is once you're done with 25 M10s for the week, you now have 25 M9s to do. Because it would still reward the player with a decent amount of umbrals or loot or whatever have you, but it's not as rewarding as the M10. Obviously, it's an M9. Once you get done with your 25 M9s, now you can go down to M8. Let the PvE people, like I PvE a lot, and let the PvE people just play the game how they want to. Don't gatekeep them on content. We've complained about this since launch, is that you gatekeep us on content over and over and over again, and we don't like it. So why do you continue to do it? I think that'd be the best solution, especially because I have flown through my 25 gen runs in a week, and then I'm just like, okay, now what do? Now I have to play OPR, or you're like, what do? I really don't know what to do. You want me to go on a chest run? No, like there's just nothing to do for me. So it's like, okay, I guess I'll just throw my head at a wall at OPR and get bowed out of my mind. I don't know. I think that the gatekeeping on that shit should be taken off. But that's kind of it for endgame. I think the endgame now is a lot better, especially with the gypsum cast. Your expertise will fly up a lot faster than it used to. But yeah, man, I think when it comes to PvP in endgame, the new player is at extremely disadvantage, doesn't have any way to get into the fight and get to be able to do wars and OPR at an effective level as much as other players. So I think there should be some kind of adjustments there. Whether it's OPR, everyone's gear just scales the same no matter what. Once you hit level 60, I don't really know what the best solution is, but there needs to be something about that, because if I'm a new level 60, my gear is terrible. I jump into an OPR and I'm facing somebody with 625 triple bis armor, bis weapons. They have 40 con food, so they have 500. They have 500 stats, 510 stats even. They're using strong common honing stones, and they're just gonna dump on me because I have no fighting chance. It doesn't even matter how well I play. That person is just out leveled, out geared, and outmanned on me. I can't do anything. It's just a strict disadvantage based on that, and that's not fair to the new players, because the new players will come in, they'll experience that and be like, wow. They don't even think about it, right? They don't know what the other person's gear is. They just think that they're getting stomped because the game sucks. So they're gonna be like, oh, this is terrible, I'm never playing this again, and then they quit. And that's what happens. So something needs to be changed about that, in my opinion, when it comes to endgame PvP. All right, so the next section I want to talk about is PvE, with dungeons, with crafting, with gathering, all that stuff. They have made so many changes since launch to make PvE a lot better. At first, PvE was terrible. In my opinion, New World, like I said, is a PvP heavy game. It thrives on the PvP. It doesn't really thrive on the PvE. Now, the reason I say that is because for a very long time, the PvE in New World was not rewarding in the slightest. Will of the Ancients wouldn't even drop from Lazarus, which is like one of the best life staffs in the game. And for a while, it was the only life staff to really use for PvP and for wars, for any healer. And it would never drop. I mean, people were posting on Reddit that they would do 500 Lazarus runs and not a single Will of the Ancients dropped. So there were so many like problems with like loot drops and people crafting, and trying to get gold 3 perk armor and weapons was like the most painful thing for such a long time, man. Until the most recent update back in June, I think it was, one of those 2 months. They put in a patch where they took out Beast Bane. They took out weapon mastery on jewelry and things like that. They took out all those dog water perks, the perks that just didn't matter. They took all those perks out of like the crafting system and being able to drop from crafting, and not only that, but being able to drop from loot from like chest runs and dungeons. So now the percentage in like the best perks in the game and just better combination of 3 perk armor, weapons, jewelry drops so much from like M10s, crafting, chest runs, all those things, man. So when you actually PvE now, you are actually being rewarded. I was never over 40 to 50k gold for months because I'm just such a PvPer, right? And even doing PvE, you still wouldn't make that much money. You would have to do it at an excessive rate, excessive amount of PvE to get a decent chunk of gold, right? So for a very long time, and this is just my opinion, this is just the way I'm seeing the game, but for a long time, I think a lot of PvPers were like this. Everyone was kind of a 2 perk Andy, where not a lot of people really had a lot of 3 perk items, maybe 1 or 2, maybe a weapon or 2, maybe a few pieces of jewelry, but Now, since the newest update where they updated crafting and loot drops, I mean, I got my amulet as a loot drop. I've gotten so much good gear off the auction house. I've gotten like 2 different separate boots that I use that I got dropped from a dungeon. Like, I'm finally using armor and weapons that I get from dungeon drops or crafting, instead of just waiting to buy out things off the market that other people crafted or dropped, right? I'm just getting stuff on my own by just PvEing on my own and doing dungeons. I think the PvE has gotten a lot better. I think if you were a PvE nerd and you love PvE games, I don't think New World is the best. I think games like Lost Ark or Destiny 2 are going to be a lot better off for you. But I do think now that PvE has gotten so much better with crafting and drops and all that stuff. I think it's so much better now because you actually have a way to make gold. You actually have a way to get better armor, better gear, better weapons, and all that stuff, man. I am thoroughly impressed with the way that they finally went through and just made a simple change of just taking out perks that don't matter and having a higher percentage of getting the perks that do matter so that people can get the stuff they want. Once again, I get it's an MMO. I get it's supposed to be grindy. But at the end of the day, I've played this game for a year, man. It shouldn't take me a year to get 3 perk armor and 3 perk weapons. It took me a month to get that. It shouldn't take that long, man. So yeah, I'm glad that they've made those changes. And if you're a new and returning player, just know that when you do get to that M10 level of doing dungeons, it's gonna be rewarding, man. You're gonna get a lot of gold drops. You're gonna get a lot of bind on equip. You're gonna get a lot of stuff you're gonna be able to sell for a lot of gold, and you're gonna be enjoying the game a lot more. Okay, so the last section I want to talk about is PvP. Now, this could be a longer session because I have a lot to say about PvP, a lot to say about the community when it comes to PvP, a lot to say about how it works, the scaling, the leveling, just everything about it, man. There's a lot of different PvP in this game, right? I would put it into 4 different categories. There's OPR, there's open world, there's arenas, and then there's wars. So let's kind of break down each one. So in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would agree, the best aspect of New World and the best PvP that you can get is open world PvP. Open world PvP is random. It's also exciting because there's no compositions. There's no, it's all based on what gear you have on you in that moment. You have to go back to town, grab your rights, grab the correct gear. Those kinds of things. There's just so many different variables that go into the open world PvP aspect that it makes it exciting. Some of the most fun experiences I've had on New World is open world PvP. When it comes to me and my company or my faction are going to push a territory, especially a big one like a Windsward or whatever, and the entire other faction and the entire yellow faction, the entire green faction, the entire purple faction are all out in Windsward PvPing all day. That actually happened. I've done it in Monarchs where we started to push Monarchs and just the entire server came out to Monarchs and we're all fighting on the beach and it's going crazy. I've had all, and I'm sure other servers and other players have had those experiences, and I thoroughly encourage you to, if you're a newer returning player, even if your gear score isn't the greatest, that when you hit level 60 or even before that, if you see a mob of your faction going out to push a territory for open world PvP, go join, because you won't die as many times as you would in an OPR. There's going to be healers out there. Just kind of fight with the Zerg, like kind of hide in the crowds of people and just do things like just be a rat and just use a musket, use a fire staff, whatever it has, whatever have you. Heal if you want. You will have so much fun and you will find that it's an enjoyable experience. It is a very fun experience. There's been times in open world PvP where me and my friends, we were getting ready to do a dungeon. We started playing music with each other and we get gravwelled from the side and 5 people try to jump us. We demolish them, we start talking shit, and we start fighting against them for a couple minutes. They start calling in their faction and their company chat. They call out 20 to 30 people for 5 of us. We call the faction chat. 100 people are now fighting outside the barnacles in the black powder dungeon, and that it's just so fun, man, because then there's people talking shit and it's so fun, man. It's fun. No matter what, you can't tell me that open world PvP isn't the best PvP in this game, because in my opinion it is. It's the best experiences. After that, I would probably say it's wars. Wars are extremely fun in this game at a competitive level and at an equal playing field. but we'll kind of get into wars in a little bit. The next I want to jump into is arenas. I am not a big arena head. I can't really review arena to its fullest. I don't really enjoy arenas. I think they're kind of meh. I don't really like the 3v3 aspect, especially when you can't queue as a comp that you would like. You kind of, if you solo queue, you just kind of get thrown in with randoms, and if they have a better composition, they probably just win. Especially if the players that you're grouped up with aren't really that great. So solo queuing can kind of be a headache. And just the low skill gap of PvP in this game causes things like arena to just be real cheesy, man. Like flamethrowers, you face 2 bows and a healer. It's like, ugh, there's just no skill involved in this. It's all just kind of cheesy, and it's just not that fun to me. I'm gonna be an arena hater because I just don't really enjoy the game mode at all. I know there are other people out there that really enjoy it a lot, and that's great. And if you find you're enjoying that, that's awesome. Keep going. But for me personally, if a build doesn't really correlate to wars, I just think it's cheesy, and I don't like it as much. Because in war with 50v50, you can't get away with the cheesy builds as much. You really can't. And if you are getting away with it, that means the other team is kind of dog shit, in my opinion. Not to be so negative, but it's just the reality and the truth of things. You can't really get away with those really cheesy builds in wars. And I say that there are people that have gotten away with it, but in the long run, in the most competitive war that you'll ever be in, I promise you, your spear blunderbuss build won't. It's not gonna combo anybody, man, against good players. So in my opinion, that's just kind of the way I see arenas. I don't think it's the greatest game mode. I didn't think putting it in the game really did anything for the game. I think it just put in another way to do PvP that isn't outpost rush if you're bored with outpost rush and you can't get into wars and things like that. So the next thing I will talk about is OPR. I have played probably 1,000 games of OPR, if not more, and we need a new map. I know that has been highly requested. We definitely need a smaller map. I think 20v20 is good. I think a smaller map would thrive. There's so many problems with OPR, man. Outpost rush, there just doesn't need to be any PvE, in my opinion. I hate the PvE aspect. I do like the aspect of like of the Baron. I think the Baron mechanic is fantastic in OPR, being able to lock out your enemies and play a different role instead of just going to cap things. I do like that aspect, and I know that's PvE, but like building doors and all that stuff, I think that stuff is just so pointless, man. I think when it comes to the forts as well, I think the doors should be bigger for people to get in and out. Right now, there's just a meta that if you have enough ice gauntlets, you could just ice wall every door, and people can just never get in. And OPR, there's just so many problems with it, man, because it's the best source of just constant PvP in the game, but it turns into just whoever zergs harder and whoever has more healers probably wins. If you have no melee on your team, you probably get stomped. And if you do have one medium melee player, but you don't really have too many healers, that medium melee player is going to get punished for playing the way they should be playing, which is frontlining. And they're going to get punished really hard for not getting healed and getting decimated by all the ranged mages and decks. I'm in an ice shower.
You actually play so
I'm
weird.
done. I'm never playing melee again. I'm deleting everything melee. I'm deleting it all. It's gone. Off the game. Never again.
How the fuck did that?
And then they're just gonna get looked at and being looked like they're dog shit when they're really not. They're actually doing the role they're supposed to, but they're just getting no support, no help. And then you just get steamrolled and you get spawn camped. So there's a lot of problems with OPR, with compositions and the size of the map. And I think the size of the map would help a lot, because what happens is everybody zergs the middle. One team gets wiped slowly, and that team starts to trickle in one by one back towards the middle, and then they die trickling, and then it turns out they start to get spawn camped. But then once the regroup happens on your team, you start decimating them, and then it happens to them. They start trickling, and the thing that happens with the trickling is you spawn back at the respawn area where you start the game, and you have to run 5 minutes to get back to the middle. Like, it takes forever. And then just get your PDers to make a respawn point. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not gonna just depend on two randoms on my team to always make a respawn point. I don't want to make a respawn point. I'm playing OPR because I want to PvP. I want to go fight people. So make this the respawns a little like closer together or something, because the map is just too big. I mean, if you probably saw a chart of how much of the OPR map was actually used in terms of terrain that people fight in, it's got to be a very small percentage. So why the map is even that big, I have no idea. If for the map to be that big, you could probably make it 50v50, to be honest, and make the forts bigger. I think that would almost be more fun. But you know, there's a lot of things that need to be changed about OPR, especially when it comes to like the meta of weapons. When the bow got buffed, man, it became bow PR and just not fun for a while there. So it's gotten a little better, but you know, with other things in the game, like for PvP, having like mortal empowerment for muskets, I mean, that shit is broken. Remove mortal empowerment. It doesn't even make sense. I don't care if you're a musket guy or a bow guy, I don't, or blunder, I don't care. Mortal empowerment does not need to exist in the game, but just my opinion. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on OPR. I'm gonna kind of dive into the perks and what they've done with PvP. They have improved that a lot. So if you're a new and returning player, the best thing to do is get a really good weapon perk on your weapon. Find out what weapon perks you need on your armor. Resilient is still the king. 4 to 5 resilient is still something you should aim for with, in my opinion, all builds. Don't really care what you have to say. If you're I'm just a musket, I don't need resilient. Yeah, well, if you're shooting other muskets, your resilient's going to be very helpful against the other musket to be able to ego them, right? Same with bows, same with healers. I think resilient's just the best perk in the game. Don't really care what you have to say about that one. You can disagree with me, but in the end, you're wrong. Resilient's just the best perk in the game. It's on every piece of armor. It's what everybody wants it to. Everybody wants resilient to roll on something, so it'll sell. It's the best perk in the game. But I would try to find what you know, a YouTube video or anything that ask some friends, ask people in your company, ask around what the best weapon perks you need on your armor are, what weapon perks you need on your weapons, what weapons to use, which perks to use on your weapons, what jewelry is the best, and what perks you want on your armor to find the best way to kind of build your character for PvP, because there's a lot of different variations for a lot of different builds. So I'm not going to dive too far into that, but they have improved a lot of that stuff. They've made a lot of different changes to weapon perks, weapon perk armor, all that kind of stuff, and I've enjoyed what they've done with that, and they've made the game a lot cleaner with everybody having a lot of different types of builds with different perks and stuff like that. So I thoroughly enjoy what they've done with that. The last thing I'm going to talk about, and this is kind of be the closing part of the video, is wars. Now, wars are a very highly sensitive topic because there is a large percentage of the player base that doesn't do or doesn't get to play in wars. Now, me personally, I've been in probably 500 plus wars, if I had to guess, maybe more. But I got Battlefield back in like May or so, early May, end of April. I got Battlefield Legend, 100 war wins. So I've been in a lot of wars, man. I've done a lot of them, and I can say that wars, if wars didn't exist, I probably wouldn't play New World as much as I do, if at all, because the enjoyment you get out of joining a company, meeting new people, meeting friends, people, you know, getting close to the people that you play with, and then going after the big territories against you know, rival companies, different factions, fighting them like 2 or 3 times, and then finally getting that win, and then your company owning Everfall, Windsward, whatever it is, the big territories, and being the top dog for even just a week or so, is one of the most it's one of the best feelings in the game, man. I think that everybody, when they do wars, should play for that moment you win a big territory for the first time, right? And the Discord is just going crazy. Oh, let's go! And everybody's going nuts, right? I think that that is one of the best aspects of the game. I think there's no other game out there that has a game mode like Wars when it comes to 50v50 brawling, right? I mean, it's kind of insane. If you're new to the game and you're just returning and you used to do Wars back in the day, what they've changed with Wars is instead of people respawning out on the flags, the defense always respawns inside the fort. Since they made that change, wars have been just extremely better since then, because territories actually do flip based on better attackers. There's still a lot of different little things that they need to fix about wars, in my opinion. Cleanse pots, respawning areas for defenders, respawn timers being kind of off once you cap flags and things like that. But all in all, wars are pretty good at the moment. The only really big problem right now is people are disconnecting a lot. They tried to introduce instance wars, and that really hasn't helped because a lot of people disconnect all the time. And with the long queues that they're having right now with anticipation for Brimstone Sands, the queue times are so long that if you get kicked from a war, you're really not getting back in, which is a real bummer. It's a real down for players. So that's something they need to fix right now, and they need to fix ASAP, because disconnecting from the game in any aspect is frustrating, but especially from a war. That's just got to be one of the most heartbreaking things, is you're going crazy in a war and then you DC with the last 5 minutes and then your territory gets lost or something. That's terrible. So they need to fix that. But all in all, wars have been a lot better since the update where they changed where respawners respawn. I do like the changes that they're going to be making, where it's going to have to be a minimum of like 35 company members. They haven't really set a for sure number on how many company members you have to defend and be in a company for 3 days or something. The cooldowns, the fatigue. I think it's going to allow more players to get into wars, a lot more diamonds in the rough to shine. People that don't really get in wars but are good at the game and get their time to shine and be able to be in more wars and things like that. I think it's going to be great for new and returning players to get more war experience. There's going to be more wars because they're going to add a new territory that does have a fort. It is an ownable territory, so that's going to be an extra war every day, every week. So there's going to be a lot more experienced players and non-experienced players going to be able to do wars more often with those changes, so I'm excited for that. But all in all, wars, in my opinion, are the best aspect of the game. Nothing beats wars in New World. I'm telling you, it doesn't. And for the people that don't really get to war a lot, I'm sorry. I do feel where you're coming from, but at the end of the day, you kind of have to, in my opinion, you have to do what you got to do to try and get in these wars, man. Like, a lot of people like to cope. Oh, I'm really good. I play a lot of OPR and I never die. Well, you're using a Fire Staff Rapier in OPR. You're using the cheese builds in OPR. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're using that in a war, you're getting benched. Like, I've been in a lot of wars, man. I've been in the sweatiest wars. I've done the most competitive wars on on the servers. I've fought in the best players in the game. Like, I've done it all when it comes to wars, man. I'm telling you right now, your cheese build that you never die with in OPR is not good in wars. I'm sorry. It's just not. So you have to figure out what the best war builds are, use that, and then try to get into wars, and then pop off and be a soldier. Don't just stat pad either. You be a soldier, and I'm sure someone will find you and get you into wars, man. If you're not doing those things, you're not going to get into wars. So it is kind of on you to try to get into wars and try to prove yourself, right? It's not just about who you know sometimes. If it is about who you know, then use that to your advantage. Do whatever you got to do, man, to get into wars. I don't blame you. But for the people that don't really get into wars, I feel your frustration. I hope this change helps with that. But all in all, nothing beats wars in New World. I'll say it again. But that's going to be pretty much my my thoughts, my just overall review and initial thoughts of New World. With this amount of time I've played in the game, I could probably talk for another 3 hours, but I don't want to make the video that long. The video is already long enough, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like me on or follow me on Twitch, all that stuff, twitch.tv/palmadelic. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel to catch more New World content. I'm gonna hopefully be putting out some more build videos along with just anything I can think of, man, when it comes to New World. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys are new and returning players, I do try to plan on making a video where just explaining like what you should be doing as a new player. I know this video kind of dove into that a little bit, but I'm going to try to stick to just that concept of, if you're a new player, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to be doing, right? I hope to make that video soon, so be on the lookout for that. But thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.